Taco, is this just like raw mechanical ability coming out of Orbit that Sanguine simply can't match, or is this just the strategy Sanguine have prepared falling apart next to such a dynamic team like Orbit?
I'd say it's a little bit of both, honestly, Adonis. The biggest thing to point out is that Orbit's draft, like F-Dot said, it really had no business doing as well as it did in the early game. Fafnir and Artemis, while it can be a really strong lane once you get it rolling into that mid to late game, you don't really expect to be hitting mid to late game at like the 13-minute mark.
You're like, full build Artemis, I've been a part of almost every kill, and now I'm just going to carry.
Yeah, it's just unreasonable, honestly. And I think that Sanguine just had a difficult time bouncing back from that once Orbit really started to take off and snowball.
Well, Sanguine are going to have to bounce back real quickly, already into Game 2 picks and bans. We'll see what that strategy, you know, what strategy they're going to adapt to. I want to talk about Toli and kind of the last thing he mentioned. Orbit know about Cherryo's Naja. His Hunbats and Naja, I think, go hand in hand. And Orbit said, do it. Pick the Naja. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think the Hunbats came out sort of in a vacuum where the opponent doesn't really matter. The Hunbats I mentioned earlier, everybody talks about how Cherryo, he plays out of Egypt, he plays with a huge ping. Coming here to play on 0 ping, that's an adaptation. So picking the Hunbats I think is a nice smooth sort of transition. Now that he's onto the LAN and he's got that 0 ping under his belt, I think now we might see the more precise picks like the Naja.
Yeah, Sanguine gonna go ahead and get rid of that Ao Kuang. I think the idea behind Cherryo on that Hunbats last game is that he wanted to try and use his ultimate in order to knock QvoFred out of that invis on Ao Kuang to try and take him out of the fights, or at least take away the sneaky factor of it. But Orbit gonna go ahead and pick that, and I think they're really trying to push Cherryo into this Naja pick.
And Vulcan highlighted right now for Sanguine wasn't really able to work out earlier today, so we'll see if this is going to be locked in or if it's going to be a different discussion. And instead of the Ares, Bacchus highlighted, a god that I think has a little bit more survivability.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a bit more important for Murrdurr. As you can see, Orbit went for the same strategy. They're looking to really just try and take him off of his comfort picks, trying to knock out his god pool and make him really flex it. So it'll be interesting to see how he utilizes the Bacchus alongside the Vulcan, but I think Orbit going in seems like they're hovering for the same strats.
Here's the second choice of the Isis, and you and I were talking about this off camera, Taco. It's just before with the Ao Kuang, the idea was at least have a little bit of the mid lane clear. Kevin or Taco, I mean, I'm just confused. Why do we keep coming back to the Isis for Orbit?
I think it's just something that Lawbster, if anything, can use as really easy setup for the rest of his team.
Yes.
And I mean, Batz again is another one of those junglers where he does have a bit of struggling for the early game, but compare it with the Isis, like you can just go ahead and keep pushing through with that.
Great team fighting compositions coming out from both squads right now. The Hunbats, Fafnir, Isis really centered around their ultimates, and that Naja did get locked in. I'm interested to see if Orbit was truly baiting this, if they do have a counter with it, because Naja combined with Vulcan is absolutely deadly on anyone that Cherryo can find left alone.
Yeah, I think that Orbit, or at least Sanguine, kind of realized at this point in time that Orbit are definitely trying to bait Cherryo into this pick, so I'm not sure if they're going to try and adapt their draft around it, depending on what Orbit decide to go into next. But I think Orbit, as far as their setup is concerned, it's really leaning towards a comp for an ADC to really start powering through, and I think that Funballer is going to probably be like the shining star in this next game.
You think we're going back to the Artemis? I mean, they basically have the same draft, Ao Kuang instead of the, or Hunbats, excuse me, instead of the Ao Kuang this time, which is going to provide even more safety for an Artemis if it does get picked up.
On her ban coming through, so it really would not surprise me to see this Artemis being picked up
That's a
again.
bad matchup for Artemis. And like, Sanguine, they're not going to pick it unless they practiced it.
Exactly. I mean, seeing both the Chronos and the On Her ban, like you said, On Her is going to give Artemis some problems early on, and then late game, Artemis is matched by very few characters, Chronos being one of them. So yeah, you know what, I think Orbit are going to land on this weird Artemis pick. I still don't know why or where it's coming from, but all signs point to Artemis.
The draft is literally the exact same thing other than the Hunbats. They went ahead, they took away that bots from Cherryo. So, I mean, it worked for them in game 1. I'm hoping, honestly, that Sanguine learned from their mistakes in the past game, recognizing what's going to be happening. They know that Orbit's going to come out, like, ready to fight. They know that Orbit's going to come out ready to just, from the get-go, jump right into things. So hopefully they managed to deal with this better.
And you know, when it comes down to it, Sanguine, again, looking at their draft, personally, I think this draft looks better on the right side of the screen. And you know what? I'm going to say the same thing I said before. Sanguine have the nicer draft, but at the end of the day, I can't go against Orbit.
Taco?
I got to go with Orbit again.
I made a mistake as well. I think Sanguine have been phenomenal in the draft phase, but the skill is not there right now. We're going to head over to the casters to bring you game 2 of Orbit versus Sanguine. Toli and Hindu, take it away.
So much, Dennis, and as we actually look through this draft, Toli, and I'm looking down here, I'm pretty sure Orbit will be happy with this because they've only given one strategy away so far, especially when they're not playing Dignitas yet. They don't want to give everything away.
It's very important right now. You're only day number 1 of 3 in Group A right now. So Orbit, they have 3 out of 4 wins for today, and they still have a great draft right now for the late game. Like we mentioned before in the Analyst desk, Sanguine has a great synergetic comp with all these purification burners, but if they're not going to group up and execute it, then their draft is essentially useless.
Now the question is how many people have actually scouted out this Artemis pick before coming out from these boys as well is the interesting thing here, because maybe the other groups may have been thinking about doing it themselves, other than Panda Cat, which we'll probably end up seeing when enemy roll around here in Group D.
And right now, Sanguine, they recognize the late game composition out of Orbit, which is why they're drafting this early game composition with the Naja Vulcan, going back into that comfort pick for Cherryo.
That's a good point.
And Orbit, they were baiting it out for so long, but they still drafted essentially the same composition, minus the Alquan, taking the Hunbats away from Cherryo.
But the question is how much of Sanguine actually practiced this Naja? It was banned a lot against them in the placement stages, and I'm pretty sure those boys weren't expecting to get given Naja and expecting the bans to come flying at it. Instead, Orbit's like, no boys, you're good, you can have Naja, we're not concerned about it.
Well, you got to be prepared if Naja is available, because there's a lot of mind games that go into picks and bans in general for a lot of these teams. Despite Cherryo being very successful with Naja, the fact that Orbit don't really care about that means that they have a very specific strategy. So it's very important for Cherryo to kind of negate that and get the momentum rolling, because a Vulcan that snowballed really heavily in the early game is going to be very problematic for Orbit.
I would like to see some more pressure onto Funballer early game as well, especially after the build we saw him go last game. No lifesteal until 4th, 5th item there. That could come back to haunt him a little bit more if they recognize that to Sanguine and look to put the pressure onto him.
Well, as long as that he's always going to be around Lawbster to give him that circle of protection in these team fights, he's not going to have to worry too much about the lifesteal. He's just going to have to avoid taking any sort of 1v1 trades.
QvoFred here. We'll be playing the Hunbats, and Lawbster, his lane mate in that mid lane for the most part here. Lawbster, for me, kind of showed up that game as well. Those Spirit Balls, his combination of skills with Isis, his ability to play very safe with his relic usage as well, just very calculated.
Absolutely. Lawbster has been playing lights out this whole day, honestly, and going into the last game of the day for Orbit, he's going to try to continue this pattern right now and trying to get a very clean start to the weekend.
Now, last time we saw this, Lawbster went straight for the Fire Elementals as well to join QvoFred and Xaliea, but this time, just the right on Harpies instead here, worried about Naja, who stayed in that lane and will pick up these Fire Elementals.
Spawning at the 45-second mark, Sanguine's going to pick up the Fire Giant Elementals, but they don't have control of the right side mid Harpies, which means that right away, QvoFred jumping over, and both mid Harpies go into Orbit.
So once again, Orbit get a lead in the early stages of the game. The wave clear will go in favor of Sanguine now as they're back there a little bit earlier, and will they look to try and pressure off that?
Both members in the dual lane right now trying to clear out the wave first, and then the action's going to happen. It seems that Arkkyl and Murrdurr, they don't really want to overextend though, despite clearing the wave first.
Well, you're waiting for Bacchus to hit level 3. You need that chug online, so the knock-up actually provides a slow, as well as the belch will stun. That's when you can start to put some power pressure on. The only thing is that hammer trap combo is just so good from the dual lane of Orbit.
And I like just the aggressiveness from Arkkyl, that he's not really worried about Trixtank jumping in and disarming him. He's still going to be in a great position to clear out the wave.
I'd like to go aggressive onto Funballer now, just because he's out of mana, or maybe even Trixtank because Funballer's out of mana. That stun will connect the roll in from Arkkyl, looking for first blood, going to force Funballer to tank some of these shots, but he can't stop every arrow penetrating through.
Both meditations being used in the dual lane, and right now it seems like Trixtank got the shorter end of that stick. Murrdurr is topped off, whereas Trixtank is still at about half health.
Yeah, that was Orbit just not respecting how much mana Funballer had, and Sanguine really recognized it there in that dual lane.
Lawbster hitting level 5 first right now, but Cherryo is level 5. He could be looking for a play in a rotation. Nika gonna still get bullied out yet again by Xaliea.
Well, at the same time, he has Amaterasu this game, so a bit of a different matchup in this one, Toli. Expected to be against it as that god.
Yes, Amaterasu struggles a lot early on, similar style to Tier. However, the difference is that there's more mobility on the side of this Amaterasu. So once that orb does get maxed out, expect a lot of aggressive rotations from Nika.
Well, Xaliea is going to go back to his lane there, but find out the Cherryo's there. Meanwhile, mid lane, TheDarkDodo forced to purify, but he's still in a world of hurt here with Lawbster coming in. Spirit Ball connects, Circle of Protection for the extra damage, and that'll get first blood to the mid laner from Norway.
It seems that Cherryo wanted to go to the solo lane to look for some aggressiveness onto Xaliea, but unfortunately that means that Dodo is left behind, and first blood getting credited to Lawbster, who's been playing already so well, and now having more gold for your mid laner. This Isis is going to be able to get her boots online first, and then if she wants to, she can go for that same Warlock Sash start that she did the first game.
Good point, makes it even harder to be picked up, and especially if you're going to get hit by that ultimate from Naja, you might not die because of that extra health that comes out of it. Trixtank going to disarm, throw out the hammer, but Arkkyl just rolls away.
So with the speed buff respawning right now, it's going to be very important for Orbit to look for more plays right now. Once Lawbster finishes off his boots, that is. Right now, with the speed buffs being off the table, they're going to be leaning more towards exploiting Dodo because his purification is still down.
That's right. And Trixtank will rotate in, but that ward in the jungle near those left-hand harpies will give the game away. The Orbit were looking for it. Meanwhile, Cherryo babysitting Nika through the early game here.
Which is very surprising because you don't want to take away too much experience from an Amaterasu. You want to allow her to get into that mid to late game form to make those rotations like we were talking about. So now, with Cherryo camping the solo lane, this exposes too much of the mid and left side for Orbit to take advantage of between Gold Fury and this purificationless Dodo.
Well, they did get those right-hand harpies there. The left ones have just spawned, and Orbit in a great position to look for them as well, as Sanguine were doing their red buff, as Quivo on the right-hand side will drop blue for Xaliea.
Both teams trying to figure out the right timing to look for these aggressive plays. They're warding around the Gold Fury, still really early in the game, 4 minutes in. They don't want to extend too far to get those aggressive wards. They're very content about playing it on the left side jungle.
And with those ults being available for Orbit once more on the jungle and mid laner, expect a little bit more pressure once more. You mentioned, you know, Vulcan's purification being down. That window is still available.
It's still available for about 40 additional seconds. We're going to see if QvoFred elect to do that or if he's going to be more careful about farming. Xaliea still being very aggressive and bullying out Nika.
Only a 300 gold differential, though, between those two solo lanes, which isn't too bad if you're playing Amaterasu being pushed into the tower early on. As long as he doesn't develop too much more, it should be okay. But with 4 members to the right, look at where Orbit are.
And with the Isis ultimate and the Coerce from Trixtank, there should be a free Gold Fury on the side of Orbit. Nobody from Sanguine here even to spot this out.
And I guess with QvoFred showing his face in mid lane, I don't think Sanguine knew what was up. Murrdurr had an idea, and as he takes around goes, guys, Gold Fury's gone.
I messed up. I'm sorry, guys. I should have been there. But now, with that 5-minute Gold Fury going the way of Orbit, Sanguine, they need to recognize this and be like, okay, they have a composition similar to the first game where they have this Isis Circle Protection. They have the Dragon Form from Trixtank. They have all these tools necessary to do these objectives. We need great wards, and if they clear our ward, we need to instantly make sure they're not going to sneak it.
Now, I do know they're an emotional team, Sanguine, here, and I look at the cameras again for this game already, and they look disheartened again. I know that these guys will get very frustrated if things are not going their way, and it kind of shows in their faces here as well.
No, Xaliea trying to defend a great ultimate to counter the Sash from Cherryo. If that Sash connected before the ultimate, he would have taken Xaliea up into the sky. Nika would have been waiting for additional damage.
You did see QvoFred there with the overhand smash looking for Murrdurr. Has been building towards the Hydra Star again. We're seeing this on every home Batz. It seems totally not a big surprise.
Not at all. The synergy, the efficiency rather, between the in-hand crits is just so effective having this early game item, and it's what's allowing QvoFred to really get off any sort of poke that he wants, especially
so
with Lawbster playing the Isis.
And he's so cheap to get online for the tier 2, which does give you, you know, that a smaller version of the passive this item gives you overall. Just comes in handy so well to get easy 20 physical power and 10% cooldown reduction. I think he's just too efficient, honestly, myself.
You have a lot of time also to get off the in-hand. 8 seconds after using an ability to get that in-hand. And with Lawbster playing the Isis, you have a stun and your silent slow combination to really try to confirm that a very important in-hand.
Well, Fire Elementals go the way of Sanguine. They're just sneaking in to pick those up for themselves, but the boys of Orbit more focused on the right, and Harpies are about to spawn now. That's where you can see the wall coverage going down, and they will take these ones on the right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Orbit elect to go aggressive around the blue or the red buff right now. Both speed buffs are being taken, but left-hand side, Funballer and Arkkyl, they're trading it out.
This trade is very interesting, and I think that was a good idea from Arkkyl to take that trade because of the lifesteal difference between the two of them. The only problem was crits came into play.
They have the Ninja Tabby for Funballer, as well as popping the steroid, which gives him more chances for the crits. And yet again, Orbit, they're still on the aggressive. They steal the red buff away from Dodo and the Boars.
So just putting both the mid laner and the Hunter behind a little bit more in this lane and allowing Funballer more safety. Look at the wall coverage he's got there, just in case of the rotations from Cherryo through the jungle.
He could take the 1v1 trades anytime he wants with that kind of ward coverage. He's going to spot out Cherryo, though, coming in the jungle side, so he's just going to clear the way very carefully and then back on off, and even using these traps to his efficiency, because if he gets sashed there, Nash is going to get placed right on that trap.
Right in the trap is going to cause a couple of issues for him, although he can still ultimate straight out of that trap, but then Purification or Ball gets dropped, so Funballer gets his Boars and then heads back towards the lane again.
With Orbit making all these aggressive plays between doing the Gold Fury, the red buff invade, the board buff invade, now they're putting themselves in the spot where they're going to be able to out-sentry ward Sanguine as the Gold Fury is going to respawn in about 2 minutes.
And it is a 3k gold lead right now, which is something that we don't normally talk about, but it's at 8 minutes in. That's quite significant as Trix in mid lane, going to get pressured a little bit. He is a dwarf after all, and on top of that, he will turn into a dragon and remove some of that damage if he felt a little bit too much pressure.
Trixtank's not too worried about getting poked out there. He has the coerce for the self-sustain, as well as going into the dragon form, getting the secondary coerce for even more sustain. However, Lawbster, he needs to be able to really capitalize on more of these opportunities. If it's going to be Trixtank that gets focused, Lawbster needs to be able to return the poke damage.
Lawbster showed a bit of experience there. You saw him Wingust to the right. He was actually just making sure Quvo could get in range for the experience as well. Make sure your jungler can pick some of that up. And because of that, they've got a nice little lead, the two of them in the mid lane over their opposition, and will be approaching that second relic a little bit quicker.
And now QvoFred is the one that really wants to gank this dual lane. He's going to wait in the board camp. He can easily jump on over and then go for the Fear No Evil play.
Well, let's find out how this is going to work out, because he's got Purification, going to roll into it straight away, but the damage without even the Fear No Evil was just insane! The trap on landing is not something you want to be as a Rama. Good night, Arkkyl. You'll be missed.
What an easy setup for Funballer, just casually waiting for Arkkyl to land into the trap. Going to be a free kill, even for burning out that Purification. No, the solo lane side, Nika's very low, forcing to dash away.
Xaliea going to quite ham there in that lane, forcing Nika out again. And that was the pressure of the Hydra Star more than anything. Quvo knew he had a lot of burst damage on that Batz, and holding his ultimate, knowing that Arkkyl would just purify if he tried to use that first.
Nika's not backing yet, and we see that the cameraman pointing out that he doesn't have anything after the warrior typing. With Cherryo making this rotation, he's going to be forced to use the ulti defensively.
A rough situation for them. Trixtank going in deep, trying to stop them backing more than anything. Might not be able to get a kill here, but he will slow them down, which is allowing tier 1 pressure on the right as well as the left.
It's all a delay tactic right now for Orbit. They don't really care about getting these kills. They're forcing out all the members from Sanguine to get the very basic objectives of these tier 1 towers. They're not even overextending for the Gold Fury. Instead, they're just casually taking away the blue buff, and even in mid lane, they're going to get all 3 tier 1 towers very soon.
I mean, I think QvoFred changed his mind and went for the buff instead, which I think is a wiser choice with Cherryo coming back on that Murrdurr. Right inside, though, Trix is in a lot of trouble and will be a casualty for staying around a little bit too long there. And Xaliea forced back to the safety of his own half of the map.
Well, at least luckily for Trixtank, he died on the right-hand side of the map. It wasn't next to the Gold Fury. Funballer, they tried to get that stun off onto Arkkyl, recognizing that he didn't have the Purification available, just slightly not in position to guarantee the stun.
And that was a call from Funballer there, because he knew Purification was down more than anything, Arkkyl not having that available. But now with the ball being down, there's pressure that could go onto Funballer here, and Murrdurr and Arkkyl feeling it, and they're going to go for it.
They have to go for it because Funballer's getting distracted on the left-hand side, forced to use the Purification. Ram's in the sky. Arkkyl, he needs to connect onto at least one more.
Can he find the last hit? He will find the last hit from downtown. Meanwhile, in the jungle, QvoFred picks up Dodo, and Cherryo going to use the ring toss to buy him some time and sustain back up a little bit more. Good ring toss that saves that jungle.
Unfortunately, the monkey bounce was not quite there to confirm the hit, but Trixtank, he's going to stop the back from Cherryo, and the Trixtank, oh, the meditation stops the kill.
Murrdurr to the rescue. He saved so many lives in his career. He just saved another one, and now it's Trixtank. He's got meditation himself. He won't want to use it if he can help it, but his cooldowns are a little bit longer. Hammer time from one. Sash and leaps away. Trixtank lives to fight another day.
And a great time buying opportunity. Xaliea is going to get poked out on the right-hand side, but his teleport's available in 8 seconds. The dash is down. He's out of mana. This should be another free kill for QvoFred.
Has he got enough for an ult? Just enough is the answer. They both back away, so no stun available. Big baby here. Nika completely drained of mana here. They will dive in, and QvoFred and Xaliea combine for another kill.
And at the same time, Sanguine, they're still not using this opportunity to really get the Gold Fury. They're very scared right now of all the pressure from Orbit. Between Lawbster right now, Funballer, Trixtank, they're good enough to defend 3-on-4.
Do you see that monkey toss damage?
It's a lot right now, especially if he connects it in here. The penetration is online for the Jotun's Wrath for QvoFred as well, so he's in a great position to really continue these team fights at this phase of the game.
Yeah, especially with 2 levels over there, and the Blink online as well. Just give Qvo even more of a threat, potentially, as Lawbster mid lane has that Warlock Sash online now, and it is stacking up. We return to the Hunters, where Funballer also has a 2-level lead.
The ultimate is used and connects with a stun, but he's not in position to continue on with the trap. The damage is just too much right now for Funballer, but Cherryo, yet again, forced to use the defensive ulti. Xaliea wants to dive. He does not have ultimate, so he has to be careful, but he's going to find the last hit anyway.
Was it worth, though, is the question, because he's not got ultimate himself. He's going to be able to get away for now that the stun connects. One more hit and Xaliea will fall. Murrdurr gets credit for the kill. He wanted to pick up Cherryo. He burnt his ultimate, but traded his life for it.
But in the meantime, QvoFred picks off Dodo. This is what happens when you leave your mid laner alone for too long. QvoFred and Lawbster, they're playing so well off of each other.
And QvoFred now swinging around the back on Arkkyl, who does not have a tower. Somersault over the wall, body block, and there's a monkey. One more he'll be enough. Killing spree for QvoFred as he goes 3-0-3.
He didn't even need the overhand smash to confirm the kill right now. And Trixtank, he's going to be able to stay in the soul lane, confirming this tier 1 tower on the right-hand side. Gold Fury still not being looked at by either team right now, just wanting to play it very safe right now, waiting for Xaliea to respawn.
I think more than anything, Orbit don't have to go through a Gold Fury again here, totally. They're winning the matchups, they're taking towers, they're forcing Sanguine to skirmish with them in the jungle. And I guess at the moment where Sanguine decide to hold back and not want to fight these anymore, they'll do gold to draw them all into another engagement.
And this is the right perfect timing because we see a 4-level advantage for QvoFred. We were talking about QvoFred at the beginning of the first set of just how impactful he is in the European scene right now. And the only person that can really contest with him is adapting coming out of energy. But right now, I think it's the QvoFred show.
I agree with that, as Murrdurr in mid, going to get silenced and then Spirit Board after the knock-up, so the CC chain's good. He will flop away, but immediately Trix closes the gap a little bit more. They're still chasing in. Now that Somersault will slow, and the monkey toss will confirm the kill for Xaliea.
And this is what Orbit wants to do. They want to find somebody out of position. They have the necessary gold lead to continue their sentry onslaught around this Gold Fury. Even Murrdurr right now, he can't even get in position to counterward.
Finno Evil in mid lane onto Dodo, forcing out Purification and Sanctuary as the Gold Fury goes down for the second time this game to Orbit.
7,500 gold in the lead right now, and Dodo has to be careful. He's at about half health, flirting with danger. QvoFred, he's thinking about jumping into this tier, into the tier 1 mid.
Because Cherryo's on the right hand side and Murrdurr's dead. There's no real front line for them to be able to defend this. Tier 1 tower going to be looked at as Dodo does fall back to his tier 2. Wisely done.
Meditation being used by Trixtank. Xalia's going to back off because he wants to make sure that Cherryo's not going to continue the push in solo lane just to get that tier 2 tower. So now Orbit, they're still very much ahead of this game. They're about 7,500 gold, 15 minute mark.
Huge lead for them. It's almost like a 500 gold lead, sorry, 1,000 gold per 2 minutes, which is almost insane overall between these two. Arkkyl, though, going to lose the trade again on the lazy back here. Funballer may decide to run him down a little bit more. Ball's coming out, not going to connect, though. Tuski's not having any of it right now.
He's still thinking about chasing. He was thinking about using his slow just to chase him down, but Arkyl's going to get bullied out, and now that's going to allow Funballer to make even another rotation right now if there's going to be a team fight in mid.
I think this is going to be a risky play coming out from Funballer, though, as time goes on. Like, going for Chins into Titan's Bane with no sustain and an Artemis. If he got focused by a team here, that Artemis is going to have a hard time in this game.
Absolutely. This is full YOLO mode right now for Funballer. He wants to get off as much damage as possible while he gets coerced by Trixtank. He's relying on both QvoFred and Lawbster to create enough havoc that nobody from Sanguine could really penetrate the backline of Orbit.
With that. And this actually looks like Orbit going to turn attention to a very early Fire Giant possibly here. They're starting to group up on this right-hand side a bit more, get the wards down ready for a potential one at the moment. This is the cleanest game, other than the last one, that we've seen so far today.
Orbit are so focused right now. They're so ready. We see them time and time again in Season 2 and Season 1 where we know that they have the talent and the pull and the drive necessary, but sometimes they lack the commitment, but now it's going to be another easy commitment onto Dodo.
And Dodo will get his ultimate off in time, but Trix will pick it up with the jump in, but now he's under pressure too. Cherryo doesn't want to commit with his ultimate just yet there, and talking about that, I don't think I've seen seen Cherryo ult a single person this game so far.
It's been all used defensively whenever he could. He was thinking about using it in the tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, but a great play from Xaliea prevented that one option. And now there's just no momentum for Cherryo. We talked about the early game, how he needed to really make these plays, and because he hasn't, now Sanguine's been playing on the back foot the whole time.
We saw Orbit there. Look at the tier 2 for a moment, but with 4 members of Sanguine there, happy to give it up. QvoFred going to cut off the option in the jungle, but he's standing on a ward now, so Sanguine have an idea that he's over this side as Funballer looking to burst down this tower with suppress the insolent.
He also has the red buff available to increase the damage. Trixtank is waiting to jump in over those backside harpies. 3 members from Sanguine looking down to Funballer, but it's going to be Orbit backing off and repositioning themselves. There was a ward that spotted out Trixtank, actually.
Very true indeed. I mean, Circle of Protection's down as well as Trixtank's ultimate as well, the Draconic form, so because of that, they will fall back for safety. There's no reason to over-aggress, and that's the mistake they made against Elevate in that second game.
They're just too far ahead right now where they don't really want to overextend and get anything back to Sanguine right now. They're very confident in their team fights between QvoFred and Lawbster, like we mentioned. They have double red buffs right now, speed buff onto QvoFred, so all they have to do is just sentry ward around this fire giant, which they actually have, but they should be able to really control that space if they want to go for that objective.
I mean, I'm looking at the team of Sanguine here, and the only person I could really mention is probably Murrdurr out of this whole squad that's done okay. I mean, game 1 he was playing Ares, but got picked off by the Artemis and Fafnir combo, so this time goes with the Bacchus, makes a bit of an impact this game here, but the rest of the team just don't seem to be here right now.
Murrdurr has been making the plays for the counter rotation. It was up to Orbit to make the mistakes. We saw the dive on the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side, but look at this Orbit. Yeah. They recognize that there's 2 members from Sanguine on the left, so they're going to go for this late game objective, and nobody's here to really respond.
Well, less than 19 minutes in, and this fire giant will fall down. The tier 1 tower on the left falls down in response, but I'm pretty sure Orbit will trade that every day of the week, even maybe a tier 2 as well.
Maybe it's going to be Sanguine trying to go for a base race, but it's going to be Trixtank and Xaliea holding the front on the left-hand side. Xalia's going to pop his ultimate in the mid lane. Nika forced to use a counter ultimate of himself.
Not going to get his stun off as Murrdurr now left on his own, and there's the boar coming out too. 2 quick kills the way of Orbit as Xaliea and Trix defend the tier 2 tower on the left.
They're going to try to
the
pincer.
Team just carry on marching up for the Phoenix.
I thought they were going to try to go for a pincer, but instead they're going to cancel the backs to allow themselves to get that mid Phoenix. Cherryo's going to fall. 3 members dead from Sanguine, and right away, mid Phoenix is about to fall pre-20 minutes.
Well, Nika, Arkkyl, Dodo, welcome to land, my friends, because you've been taken for a ride by Orbit right now. Orbit have just welcomed you in the worst possible way you could ask for.
And Trixtank giving a ride to Funballer and Lawbster with that coerce, melting that tier 2 tower, and they're not done yet. They're going to jump onto Dodo, forcing that purification, getting another kill. Actually, the Sanctuary is going to keep him alive for now.
A Spirit Ball over the wall won't connect from Dodo, as into the sky goes Arkkyl to buy himself a moment, but when he lands, he's forced his Sanctuary and roll away. The dive in from Orbit there slowed down their advance, though, and there's a chance, a small window for Sanguine.
They're able to survive for now. QvoFred backs on off. The defense for the left side Phoenix is successful for now. Nika with the respawn coming in clutch there.
But the fire giant is still ticking away on the boys of Orbit here. Gonna have it for a little bit longer at a time so they can regen in the jungle once more, sustain back up, and then look to go again.
Right now, Orbit have nothing to worry about. They didn't lose any member off the left side Phoenix Siege, and like you mentioned before, with that regen, they're easily going to be able to continue the onslaught. They have circle protection, they have the Vamana ultimate to guarantee this Phoenix.
Well, it's up to Cherryo and Murrdurr here to try and make an impact. That ring toss will slow them for a minute, but a good hammer from Trix denies Cherryo from going in, who didn't have purification available there. Xaliea going to tank this one up to allow Funballer in, but Cherryo's going for Funballer, and he ults away straight away. He was actually looking to make a big play, didn't work out, and in the end, Funballer picks up Nika.
Nika's going to fall, left side Phoenix going to fall as well. Orbit, they're thinking about possibly ending it. Instead, they're going to back off. They want to be able to still get this last remaining tower and Phoenix to diminish the health and the protections from this Titan. It's still relatively early in the game where they don't have a full build quite yet.
That felt like a Papa Lob call, that, more than anything. Lobster was probably like, no, back away, chill out. We've got this game. Let's not make any silly mistakes. We'll go and clear the jungle out, you know. We've still got a Phoenix left on the right. Let's just fully cripple this base before we look for the final assault.
And the respawn timers are still relatively short, I would say, for Sanguine. They're like level 16 right now, with Murrdurr being 14, Dodo 15, so it's a lot shorter than if any member from Orbit died right now. It would take them so long to respawn that this would give enough breathing room for Sanguine to look for any counter objectives, whether it's Golfier or towers, which is why Orbit are denying that option by doing the gold here. They don't really need the gold that much this point in the game. They're up 17,000.
That's true, they don't need that goal. Just make sure there's no window of opportunity. The Titsuta on the right does still stand for Sanguine, and I'm pretty sure they won't defend it when Orbit walk up to it, especially with 5 minions from mid and left-hand lane to deal with as well. Sanguine have their back against the wall, and to be fair, we've seen this before, and teams can come back, but I don't have high hopes here, Toli.
It's very difficult right now for Sanguine. They're down 2 Phoenixes, they're down 10 kills, and they're down 17,000 gold. This is not looking good for them. Orbit, they're trying to close out this set and go undefeated for the first day of the weekend.
Dignitas is their next opposition here, straight after Orbit. They got things to correct before they face off against Dignitas now, because they're going to be quite happy looking at this, going, okay, we know how to deal with them. Doesn't look like Sanguine have showed up just yet.
No, not quite yet, but Orbit definitely showed up to the right side. Phoenix, they're going to be negated again. Cherryo off the mark.
And that, for me, is just the tipping point of this game. Cherryo, there was a lot of pressure on him coming to this game, a lot of expectation for that young man from Kuwait, but the problem being is the fact that sometimes the pressure can get too much or you just don't get going.
Well, Orbit have no pressure at all. They're going to be able to close out this game. Their 4th win of the day. A great way to start off Group A.
6 points for the boys of Orbit. Eventually, as they are farming a few more kills and stat padding a little bit more, as Funballer did finally start to get towards that full build as well. Congratulations to Orbit. 6 points after day 1.
With a great draft, I would say, coming out of Orbit in the second set. Drafting this Artemis Fafnir combination, it just goes to show their true strengths. You can never really predict what they're going to do. Between going Chronos Neath in the first set now to going Fafnir and this Artemis for the late game style, Orbit is looking very dangerous.
Looks like the plan for every team as well, so I think they'll pull something else different now against Dignitas when we see that one as well, just to keep the flex options available, and then even have secret strats available to them as well. Sanguine though, what do you do as Sanguine after that set? I mean, do you just pull that into the belt, you know, put it away and move on and try and look for something else?
Well, you're definitely going to be looking at this game in the future, but right now you have to sweep this game under the rug and look forward to the next set.
And the next set is going to be up against Dignitas as well, the number 2 seed in this group, who had a pretty good performance against Elevate overall. Wasn't the cleanest they would have liked. You know, Shadow Nightmare said that himself, but they're going to be ready for it.
Well, now we're going to be ready for what the analysts have to say. Take it away, Adonis.
Wow, a convincing sweep right there by Orbit. We saw them struggle a little bit in that first set, Game 2 specifically against Elevate, but this was not even close to the same. What went wrong for Sanguine?
I mean, overall, Orbit said we're going to run it back, and that's exactly what they did. If anything, I think they even closed out that second game about a minute or two faster than the first game.
It was close either way. I mean, it was like 20 to 24 minutes, I think, on both games. Like, they were really short. And at no point did you ever feel like Sanguine had control or had a chance to really fight back into it.
Especially in game number 2, where Sanguine, not only do they get the first blood, but they get a 5-minute uncontested secret gold fury. I mean, Cherryo on his signature Naja, there wasn't a single target that was actually really tasty for him to really look at. You know, Kevin, honestly, I was really excited to be on this analyst desk. I'm usually casting, and when I'm casting, I don't get to do the analysis. I was really excited. I brought a bunch of stats, got really into it. At the end of the day, one team was better than the other. There's not that much analysis.
I mean, is it just player skill in this set? Is that the problem? Like, we talked about how the drafts for Sanguine seemed okay, and they had some strategy around them, but it just, I mean, not executed at all. Like, not even like, oh, we messed up the execution. They just didn't execute anything.
Yeah. Cherryo had some pretty beautiful outplays, for instance, when he had that ring toss onto the Gold Fury to use it as a speed buff, a get away from Orbit, but at the same time, I feel like his team really fell short with him. I don't think that they matched up to the level of gameplay that he was at.
Let's take a quick look here. Lawbster going off on the ISIS, I think, in both games. He had just such a strong showing and really utilizing that for those early objectives, not only for the Gold Fury, but even these setup kills.
Yeah, I mean, this is a character that isn't real. ISIS isn't known for being this heavy-handed powerhouse out of the mid lane. I mean, you got to look all the way back to Sio to really find somebody that can really pilot the character like that. And again, it was just Lawbster being Daddy Lawbster, making it happen.
It's Papa Lob.
Papa Lob.
It's not Daddy Lob, it's Papa Lob.
For me, it's
Get
Big
it right.
Daddy Emil, all right?
Oh, man. All right. We do have an interview with one of the winning players himself. Hindu is here standing by to talk with Funballer, the hunter who brought out a surprising Artemis pick.
Did bring out a surprising Artemis pick. Funballer, congratulations on your 6 points today, first of all. First question, where's this Artemis come from?
I don't know, I just felt like playing it. And my team was like, yeah, go for it. Because we had Fafnir, you know, the extra attack speed.
So there was no plan. I'm just going to move this for you. I'm going
right.
to touch you up. You ready?
Yeah.
You
I
like
like
that?
it. I
Of
like
course
it.
you do. Of course you do. So the biggest thing was you just picked it. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just felt like playing it. I was like, you know, get me Izzy or Izanami, or get me Artemis, and I was like, okay.
And the Artemis
team
came
was-
through. I think
yeah,
against
I loved
Ares,
that.
it was really good.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
the no escape, there's nothing Murrdurr can do in that first game.
Yep.
Overall, though, with the team and how this played out, this looks like a different squad to you boys this year, honestly. Like, I've seen you guys come to LAN before,
Yeah.
and you don't seem prepared to face everyone. You kind of overlook opposition. This time, not the story, though, because that looked clearly planned against Sanguine.
No, we this time, obviously there was like we almost lost in regionals against Dignitas.
Yeah.
And this time we were like, you know what? Let's step it up. Everyone's, you know, we're prepping for everyone, and yeah, that's what we're doing now.
Good performance from you. So we've got a little bit more to look forward to watching you this weekend as well. Obviously, 6 points at the moment. Overall, there, have you got any more secret strats that we may see call out? Or are you just going to just randomly call a god again?
I mean, you never know. We're always the innovative team, so we'll see what happens.
Well,
But yeah.
we'll find out then if Funballer pulls out any more jank, or will it be Xaliea, because he does it too. We'll be back after the break with the next set, which will be Sanguine versus Team Dignitas.